It's recording now, isn't it? Let's see now. This is only a test. Don't anybody want to leave me feedback and say it's fantastic? I know you're bullshitting, so just spamming you are. So don't send that message. Won't be up for long anyway. No. I'm off notified. Why is there? Nothing. Babies, see you tomorrow. That's sexies. Thank you, babies. Don't like this thing. Oh, thank you. Didn't realize it was like that. See, look how good these travel lights are. Thank you, sexies. See you tomorrow. Ta babies. Love you. Listen to. Here's a trick for you using these travel lights. First of all, you go to this side, then you go over to this side. There we are. Come on! Bloody hell, man, that's ridiculous, isn't it? Good. Like my old car, that is. Thank you, babies. Stop, I could have gone into the back of it. Flaming idiot. An idiot, man. Idiot. See, look how these travelling. Because they know we're coming. Thank you, sexies. Love you. See you tomorrow. Ta babies. Gonna watch this pottle. Loads of potholes around here, you know. horses are getting onto him now. It's bad. Drives like an asshole and goes through red lights. Thank you, sexies. Loves you. See you tomorrow. Ta-ra, babies. Yeah, he's an asshole, he isn't he? Yeah, thank you, sexies. Loves you, and I love you as well. Ta-ra, babies. Go on, I can count that one. Thank you. Oh, smile with sexy green eyes there. Oh, no, he's going to break, is he? Listen, I'm only doing 28. My car doing 30. Potholes are bad though. Bloody potholes are bad. Babies. Take it to turn a corner. Thank you, babies. Ta-ra, sexy. See you tomorrow. See, they're brilliant, they are, aren't they? Thank you, babies. Yeah, now that's saying 29, but my car's saying 30 mile an hour, so I don't know what's the matter there. It's not right, whatever the case is. The clap seems to be okay though. Bit shaky, but you know, what do you expect, innit? Do you know what I mean? Like it's wobbly in here. Babies. See you tomorrow. Sorry, innit? To do it, innit? God. Just come straight out, right? That's all you gotta do. Indicate after.
He also said that he did it at 7 a.m. laughing out loud.
Not supposed to set out until it's on green. Well, there's not very good driving, is he? Hey, babies. See you tomorrow. Shot to it around about, didn't he? Okay, then. Idiot. Stupid. So I gotta get down. I didn't realise I was doing that, though I gotta be honest with you. Babies. Hey Google. Hey Google. What's the matter with you? Wake up, you bitch.